The United States Coast Guard is a unique branch of the military that employs nearly 42,000 men and women for an array of maritime duties, from incredible rescue missions to ensuring safe and lawful commerce around the USA. These are some of the craziest U.S. Coast Guard operations. Number 5. Liannas Ransom Rescue. On March 31st, 2015, the Coast Guard received a distress call from Liannas Ransom, an 85-foot topsail schooner that entertains up to 70 passengers with an authentic pirate experience. The boat had been doing day excursions and voyages on the Great Lakes around Nova Scotia and sometimes the Caribbean. As it turns out, this was not the first time the vessel needed assistance from the Coast Guard. In December of 2014, the ship's mast broke and the Canadian Coast Guard had to provide assistance. Some 3 months later, Liannas Ransom ended up on the wrong side of 10-foot waves and 35-mile-per-hour winds. The ship set sails in Nova Scotia and was on its way to St. Martin, Dutch West Indies. By the time the U.S. Coast Guard came, the situation was dire. The vessel's engines had failed and her sails were badly damaged. When a pair of motor lifeboats were unable to tow her, the decision to transfer her crew of 9 was made. The Coast Guard handed over some cold water immersion suits, and one by one, the crew of 9 jumped to safety. All but one of the crew managed to escape Liannas Ransom with no injuries. Liannas Ransom still has a Facebook page up, but there's no word on their next adventure since their website throws out a connection error. Number 4. Drug seizures. One of the main maritime duties of the U.S. Coast Guard is the interception of drug traffickers. Here's a video from 2015. This is what 34 metric tons of cocaine looks like. The drugs were seized in 23 separate interdictions by the Coast Guard. So what happens to all these tons of drugs? Well, it depends on the situation. The Coast Guard is unique. It is both a military organization that can deal with international affairs, and it also has jurisdiction for maritime law enforcement, making it a federal law enforcement unit. If the drugs are seized in international waters, the boat and drugs are usually destroyed right then and there, and the people are taken into custody and returned to their point of origin. If the drugs are found in federal water routes, the suspects are arrested and the drugs are confiscated. Then, they just offload them to undisclosed locations for destruction. The drugs, not the people. Anyway, let's take a look at some videos. In November of 2019, the Coast Guard cutter Berthoef interdicted a suspected low-profile go-fast drug smuggling vessel in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. They seized more than 3,100 pounds of suspected cocaine.
It looked like a few bales all the way up forward there.
Here is a video from the inside of one of those low-profile, go-fast drug smuggling vessels. Just so you can get an idea how the people that operate these vessels live while at sea. In the same month, the same crew spotted another drug smuggling vessel. It seems the cover of darkness can't save you from these guys either. By the looks of it, the smugglers were trying to protect their 1,000-pound shipment by not stopping. Eventually, the Coast Guard got to them. Here's another one. Crew members of the Coast Guard cutter Midget, what a cute name for a boat, were on their way to their future home port of Honolulu when they stumbled across a drug smuggling vessel with 4,600 pounds of cocaine on board. What a way to start the day, huh? This video from 2015 shows the crew of Coast Guard cutter Stratton seizing more than 6 tons of cocaine from a 40-foot vessel headed to the United States. And just to give you an idea of how many drugs are seized by a single Coast Guard unit, let's look at the cutter James. In 18 stops, they found approximately 28,000 pounds of cocaine worth around $367 million and 11,000 pounds of marijuana worth around $10 million. The biggest single drug bust happened in March of 2017. Some 43,000 pounds of cocaine, worth an estimated $350 million, wholesale, $850 million street value, were seized by the Coast Guard cutters Hamilton and Sherman during an investigation of a container ship. Can you imagine the total amount of drugs smuggled into the United States? Just consider this for a moment. Only 5% of total drug seizures happen at sea. It's insane. Number 3. St. Catharines Sound, Georgia, rescue. Even though most of us are sitting at home, bored out of our minds, the work for the U.S. Coast Guard never really stops. On March 16, 2020, a Coast Guard Air Station Savannah MH-65 Dolphin helicopter crew had to search for a vessel in trouble. In the middle of the night, the crew managed to find the boat, which had ran aground and was taking on water. The 4 people on board were quickly rescued and then transferred to EMS for further medical care. Sometimes helicopters are not the answer. Such was the case for these 5 fishermen rescued near Cape Alava in Washington state. The Coast Guard ship could not get close enough for the fishermen to jump, so they had to tow a line in the water and pray for the best. Hopefully, everyone who is hanging out on fishing boats is not afraid of the open sea. Number 2. DOG, Special Forces. Known as the Deployable Operations Group, DOG was a U.S. Coast Guard command that trained, equipped, and organized deployable specialized forces. From 2007 to 2013, DOG was responsible for all special unit training, but for one reason or another, the training unit was disbanded and half the special forces were split between Coast Guard Pacific and Atlantic Area Commands. For those 6 years, the DOG handled a lot of different things, like the 2010 Haiti earthquake, and did a lot of work during the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The Deepwater Horizon was a semi-submersible mobile offshore drilling unit that was used to extract oil from the deep sea. It did not end well. The Deepwater Horizon was drilling a deep exploratory well in the Gulf of Mexico at depths reaching 18,360 feet below sea level. On April 20th, 2010, high-pressure methane rose to the drilling rig and exploded on the surface, engulfing the platform in flames. Of the 126 crew members on board, 94 made it out alive because of the quick rescue missions that followed the explosion. A lot of people wish this was the end of the story, but the ensuing oil spill of 4.9 million barrels, or 210 million gallons, resulted in catastrophic environmental effects, and the total area affected by the spill was estimated at 68,000 square miles. Coastlines all the way from Florida to Texas saw their share of oil reaching their beaches. Number 1. The drug bust. I know we just watched a bunch of different drug busts, but this one deserves its own spot on the list. On June 18th, 2019, crew members from the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Monroe boarded a SPSS in international waters.
Out to Barco! Ah! Out to Barco! Out to Barco! That's gonna be hard to get on! Out to Barco!
Can you imagine minding your own business and then you hear someone knocking on your submarine hatch? The video made its rounds in the news media that month, and it prompted an address from the POTUS himself. The Cutter Monroe came back with more than 39,000 pounds of cocaine and 900 pounds of marijuana from 14 separate busts. Pretty damn wild, wouldn't you say?
Check out the featured comment below, subscribe for more World Unearthed, and I'll see you in the next video.